Hey everyone, and welcome to another Nielsen Networking video. In this video, we're going to continue along with our virtualization series. And the plan for this video specifically is going to be to go out and download, install, and configure a Nessus vulnerability scanner for our virtual internal network. We'll be setting up our new Nessus scanner as a virtual machine inside of VirtualBox. Now, if you don't have VirtualBox installed, or you don't even know what it is, go ahead and check out the link above to our video on how to install VirtualBox with a Kali Linux VM. That is a video we did not too long ago, and where we actually installed VirtualBox, and then we installed a virtual Kali Linux guest machine inside of VirtualBox. So once you have that installed, you can come on back and then continue on with this video if you want. Or if your plan is to continue on with this virtualization series, where the longer term goal is to create a virtual lab, you're going to want to go out and check out the second video we did on virtualization, where we set up a Windows box inside VirtualBox. So if you look at that link now above, that will take you to the video where we did the setup for the Windows machine on VirtualBox. And then once you're done with both of those, you could come back here and we'll continue on with the installation of the Nessus scanner as a virtual machine inside VirtualBox. So as you can see, the long-term goal is we'll have a Kali Linux machine, we'll have the Windows 10 machine, we'll have the Nessus scanner in there, and we'll configure the VirtualBox platform to be a virtual network where we'll be able to see all the devices in there, run those scans. And the long-term goal is to have a virtual network lab where we can test out vulnerabilities, we can test out remediation techniques, we can test out numerous other cybersecurity tools and practice the skills needed to use them. So that is the goal, the longer goal. That is the goal of the whole virtualization series. But as you can see by the previous two videos and this one, we're getting there. It's going to take time, but this is kind of the third piece following that down. So why don't we get started? And first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and go out and we're going to go to this website here. And I will put this in the description for you. It is the Nessus website, Tenable. And what you're going to do is you're not going to want the OVA because that's for VMware. What we want is right underneath it. We want this one, the ISO file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click download, and we're going to totally read this and agree to it. And it's going to download. And I will come back when this is done. All right, and that was painfully slow to download for some reason. My internet connection is really slow this morning, but as you can see, we are done with that now. So we can go ahead and minimize this down, and we're going to open up VirtualBox. I don't know where my icon went. I used to have a desktop shortcut. Anyhow, and what we're going to do is get rid of that over here, and we're going to want to do new. And you're going to go ahead and name this Nessus scanner, whatever you want. I am super original, so we're going to leave it as a Nessus scanner. Here is the chance to relocate your virtual machines off to a different location, whether it's an external hard drive, a different volume, whatever. This is when you're going to do it. ISO image, we're going to go ahead and browse to what we just spent a long time downloading. And we're going to go ahead and do that. And you want to make sure you click skip unattended installation. Hit next. We're going to leave the memory at 2 gigs. We're going to up the processors to 2 cores. We're going to leave this alone. Here, we're going to leave this at 20 gigs. It's more than enough. We're not going to pre-allocate like we did in any of the other, like we didn't do in any other. We're going to keep that off on all of our devices because we're always going to lean on the short side, meaning we don't want to fully allocate 20 gigs if we're only going to end up using 10. So that's that. And we're going to go ahead and hit next, finish. And I think good to go here. So we'll go ahead and double click to fire it up. And we'll wait for it. And we're going to want to hit the first option, install Tenable Core. And this is typical behavior. You're going to see a bunch of OKs, throw some errors up, maybe even a red. Yeah, that's OS, something it flashed by, but nothing to be concerned about. That's typical behavior for Nessus. And Linux specifically, all those OKs, you're going to see that whenever you boot up any Linux operating system. Sometimes it can be hidden behind a splash screen, but if you ever hit escape while you're booting a Linux OS, it will show you that exact menu. And it goes through every phase of starting up Linux, every module that loads, every controller that comes online, everything. So this does take a little bit of time here, so I'll go ahead and come back to you. Okay, at this point, we're probably going to get an error that it can't find a hard drive. It can't find a hard drive, but we have a storage configuration error, and that's going to be number 6 down here. So what we're going to want to do to resolve this, if you run into this, maybe you'll get lucky. I've run into it every time I've installed Nessus, so you likely will, but if you don't, good for you. But those of us that do run into it, at this point, what we're going to want to do is hit number 6. And as you can see, it sees the drive. So we're good there. So we're going to hit C to continue at this phase. Second one, we're going to move this to 2. So we want to hit 2 and use all space. And then we're going to hit C to continue. So it's 2, use all space, and then enter, then C to continue. And the third one, which I think is why we're getting the error to begin with, is we need to change this to number 1, enter, and then we're going to hit C to continue. And then at this point, once it comes back, you can see it's happy now. We have an X all across the board except for user configuration, which we don't do anything with. And we're going to go ahead and need to hit B at this point to begin installation. And I'll get rid of this so you can see what's over there. This is going to take a fair amount of time, so I will come back to you when the next change, when it starts downloading the packages. I'll try to come back to you. If not, I'll just come back when it's done downloading the packages. I think there's about 500, so I'll talk to you in a second. And it just started downloading the packages, and there's 497, so it's going to take a while. I'll resume once they're done downloading and installing. All right, and it looks like it just finished with the last installation and is performing some post-installation setup tasks. Okay, and things have finished up here. Installation complete. That's good. But before we do anything else here, this is an important step. So what we want to do is go ahead and hit the lower, what did I tell you? I'm like, it's the right control. I was going to say the lower right control. But you want to hit the right control on your keyboard, which will allow you to come outside a VirtualBox here. And that's critical because what we need to actually do is go to the machine and we need to shut it down. So you're going to, at this point, remember, you're going to hit right control, go out of it, go to machine, ACPI shutdown. And the reason we're shutting it down is because right now it is set to boot off of that ISO image. And if we do it, it will put us in a loop where it keeps trying to reinstall Nessus. So now that it's shut down, we need to go in here and we need to right click and go to settings. And then we want to go to storage and we want to select the installer. We want to right click and say remove attachment. Just hit remove when you see this prompt. Hit OK. And at that point, we are now good. Nessus is installed. It will boot up when we go ahead and start it up. But we have one more step we're going to take care of at this point. And what that's going to be is we're going to need to go to Tools, click right here, go to Network, and you're going to go to NAT Network. It's probably going to load here by default, but switch over to NAT Networks. You're going to want to hit Create. I already have one here, but what you're going to want to do is hit Create, and I'll just show you how you do it. You go through here, and you're going to name it whatever you wanted to name it. Nessus network, or whatever you want to do. You could change the IP right here. So if you didn't want to use this private IP, you could go, and this is going to be a range. It's going to give you 254 choices here. So I would just leave the default unless you have a preference for that you really need to change this setting right here. Go ahead and do that and hit apply. I'm not going to go ahead and hit apply because I already have one here. So I'm actually going to remove it. So, but let's just say this is the one you had just created. After you hit apply, you now have that. What you need to do then, go to the Nessus scanner, right click, go to settings, go to network, and on each device, we're going to change this to NAT network. So we want it to be on whatever the name of the virtual network you just created was, the NATed network, change it to that. And then you'll do the same for the Windows box if you created that. If you didn't, skip on to the other one. So NATed network. And they all have to be on this NATed network to see each other. And if you don't do it, you won't be able to see any of the devices when you go ahead and scan with Nessus. So we're going to do that, network, NATed network, and there you go. And they're all on VirtualBox network. Go ahead and do that, and now you are good. So we're going to go up here, and we're going to turn on the Nessus device, and we're going to actually start to do the basic configuration. And here we go. Just going to turn those off. I don't need to see those little pop-ups. Okay, so here you just go ahead and leave it on the default. Actually, I don't want that full size. It can be a little bit of a pain. And we're going to let it boot up. And this will take a few seconds. And believe it or not, the machine's actually online right now, and it's going to have picked up a DHCP number. And so make note of that. And we're going to go ahead and now what we're going to do is we're going to minimize that down. We're going to go to our Kali Linux because I prefer that over the Windows box to test this. So we're going to power that up, wait for that to boot up, and then I'll come back. Actually, while that's booting, let's do this. We can perform a test here. First thing we're going to need to do is, you know what? Let's just go ahead and wait. And before we change anything on the Nessus box, let's make sure we can actually see it from the Kali Linux box, because otherwise we're going to need to go back and do something else. So hold tight here. All right, so you're going to want to log into your Kali Linux box or whatever machine you have. And then we're just going to perform some quick pings to make sure we can see the other device. So we're in there. We're going to ping it. I think it was 10.0.2.5. All right, so we're good there. We are seeing it. That's a very good sign. That should make the rest of this video pretty smooth. So we're going to go ahead and just minimize that down, and then we're going to go here, and we're going to find the Nessus device. And all we want to, well, that's not true. There's two ways you can do this. We can do this from the command line, but we're going to go ahead and do it through the GUI. So we just needed to make note of what port they want us to start on, and they want us to start on port 8000. So we're going to go back to our Kali Linux box. We're going to open this up. We're going to go ahead and type in HTTPS 10. No, guess I can't be lazy. 10.0.2.5 port 8000. And if I type that right, we should get a screen. Okay. You may or may not, depending on how your Firefox is configured, get a certificate warning on that. What you need to do is click Show Advanced Options and click through Proceed, I know risks, accept risks, yada, yada, yada. So what we're going to go ahead and do here is, first thing we want to go ahead and log in, check this box, and we're going to want to log in with wizard, password admin. And here it's going to make you create a new administrator. So whatever you do at this point, make sure you write it down. So I'm going to do NN admin and password. And then I'm going to create the account. Okay, apparently I'm not going to do that. It has to be 14 characters. So create a 14 character long password. Learn something new every day. And we should be good with that. Has been added, finish setup. And now it's going to make you re-log in with that other admin account. So what you want to do at this point is you want to make sure when you log in you have reuse my password for privileged tasks. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to modify the settings in there, and you're going to have to go in through the GUI and reset the wizard and do that whole process again. So I'm going to do my password, and then we're going to go ahead and log in, and we're in here. So at this point, what we want to do is, I mean, you can browse through here. These are all like kind of back-end settings. You shouldn't have to modify many, if any of these. You can if you want. If you ever need a terminal, this is a place you can go to use the terminal. You could also putty on into the machine, but this is easier. So what we do want to do is go ahead and click this link, because this is actually the front-end GUI where we're going to get to pull reports and all that stuff. So we're going to want to click on it. And this is that Firefox warning I was telling you about. So go ahead and click Advanced and hit Accept the Risks. And it's going to take us to a page where Nessus is going to say we're going to want to go to Essentials. And we're going to hit Continue. And you're going to need to enter some information. And I just asked it to send me an activation code. You can technically skip this step if you want, but I would recommend you just do it. I believe it gives you like a 16 IPs that you can scan if you do activate it. I'm not certain on that, so don't quote me, but I believe that's the major advantage. So I'm going to go ahead and wait for that access code to show up. Okay, so here's my activation code. Next, it's going to ask you for a username and password. Go ahead and do that and hit submit. And just as an FYI, when you do put your activation code in, you need to put in the hyphens, the dashes, whatever you call them. Make sure they're there, or it'll just loop you out and keep failing you after you enter a username. Now at this stage, it's going to go ahead and download all the Nessus plugins. These are what actually scan for the vulnerabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and let it do that, and I will come back to you when it's done. Okay, so I had to walk away, and while I was away, it timed out while the plugins were installing. Well, it finished the install of the plugins, but then the session timed out before I could see what the finish screen was to show you. So anyway, I logged in, and this is the next screen I got, and this is what you should see after the plugins. Instead of timing out, it should then have taken you right into this screen. Um, so at this point, what it's asking to do is it's asking to perform a host discovery scan. And that's just going to be a scan of the network. So for our network, and if yours is similar, you obviously will have to change out whatever's different for yours. But I'm going to go ahead and do mine, and you can kind of mirror it, just change it to match yours. And I know this is way more IPs than we need. There's only 2 devices, but just for default, if we add any and I change static IPs or anything, actually I'm going to put this to 255. So if I add any devices, they'll be within this subnet. That way I never have to come back in Nessus and reconfigure this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit, and it's going to go ahead and start doing it. And as you can see, it already found this is our Kali Linux device. So I'm going to go ahead and let that run, and I'll come back when that's done. Okay, and it completed. And as you can see up here, Nessus Essentials comes with, you can scan 16 host limit on your license. Now it says 16 host limit. The thing is, you can add up to 16 hosts every 90 days. So if you were to, and this is going to be well beyond what we need, but if you were to scan a device with an IP, you delete that device from the list in 90 days, it would actually free up that license. So like I said, that's well more than we're going to need. We're probably going to need less than 5, and they're always going to be the same IP. So we're golden here. So it looks like it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to click out of here, and we're done there. So why don't we get an actual scan up instead of a host discovery. Host discovery is just, think of it as like a ping. It's going out to see what's out on the network. So what we're going to want to do is go ahead and go to a new scan. And we're going to start with just a basic network scan. We're not even going to put credentials in. This would be those of you that are, really interested in vulnerability scanning. This we're going to set up what would be known as a passive scan. We're not going to credential it. We don't want to cause any harm. Later on in another video, we'll go in depth into Nessus. But for this video, that's already kind of gone long enough, and we've already accomplished our goal of getting Nessus running in VirtualBox. We're just going to do the passive scan to make sure we're getting some kind of results. So I'm going to put this up as, we'll just go passive network scan, and subrange, we're just going to go, oops. Save it. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start it, and we'll come back and look at the results as soon as it's done. Okay, so it's done. We'll go ahead and take a look at that in a second, but something real quick that I just wanted to mention, because the scan did take a little longer than I would like. It took about 15 minutes, and the reason is because it was scanning additional devices, including like our VirtualBox virtual switch, if you will, and devices like that we don't really want it to be doing. The way I said it originally was I wanted it to kind of send out to anything on that subnet. But thinking back, if you're in a rush, you might not want to deal with that. So a way around it, just if you wanted to. I'm personally going to leave it how I have it because I'm never in that big of a rush in a lab. But you could go ahead and go back to the basic scan and just spell out one specific device. So that would scan the Kali Linux. You want to do 2? Oops. That would do 2, assuming this was the second IP. So keep that in mind if you wanted to. And again, in future videos, we're going to go over Nessus in more details so I can actually show you how it works and how to understand the reports and everything. But to get back to that result so we can get this video to an end, let's go ahead and check it out what it found. So it's found, okay, I found our default gateway, but this is just informational. There's no exploits or vulnerabilities there. There's one here. It looks like a DNS issue. No biggies, but what we'll do for this video, we'll concentrate on this one because this is the Kali Linux box, and this is a current release that we just downloaded 2 days ago of the time of this recording, which was November 18th. So it's interesting. There's already something out there, some advisory that target or doesn't target but affects the Kali Linux release that we're running. So let's go ahead and click on it. When you go in here, they're going to give you a description, but what you really want to do is you kind of want to go look at the solution. And then obviously there's nothing here. Update the affected packages. Well, that's great. You could either go through and Google these things, or better yet, click on here because this is going to take us to the advisory. Okay, well, this will take us to the advisory. Sometimes they take you to the landing page of the OS, but since this is Red Hat, it's a part, CentOS is a part of that. It's kind of like going to the parent company of something. So we're going to click on it, and this will be the actual advisory. That gives you more details than Nessus. I mean, you could read the Nessus description and all that, but this is going to be where you're going to get the description and the more guts. And here's the solution. So that's how you're going to read Nessus in your lab. We can go back and look at what the other one is. It's probably an SSL certificate issue. Yeah, can't be trusted. Then you go through here, and it does tell you what you can do about it. And then it's going to send you to Wikipedia to try to explain to you what a 509 is, things like that. Um, so that's pretty much it. Obviously, you can set up these scans, and I'll go in. I'm not even going to get into it because that's a whole rabbit hole I don't want to go down in this video. But the goal has been accomplished. We got Nessus running on a virtual machine inside our VirtualBox infrastructure. That gets us Kali Linux that we installed in another video, Windows that we installed in another video, and now this. So we're golden there. And then moving forward, we'll see what we're going to do next. Maybe we'll go into a little more details on Nessus. Maybe we'll go add a third box. Maybe we'll actually just get into using some of those Kali Linux tools. I'm not sure. It's all out there. We're going to do it all eventually one way or another, so it doesn't really matter which one we go first. But anyway, that's just kind of a little something to look forward to, a reason to subscribe for future videos, future things like this. If you found this content valuable, I would love a subscribe. I'd love a like, sharing it. Um, the more we get out there, the better. So that's about all I had. And again, I hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching. Much appreciated.